Popularized by the movie Gangster Squad, Mickey Cohen was one of the most influential mobsters in Los Angeles between the 1930s and 1960s. Ruthless, violent, and always chasing a buck, he was the kind of gangster who wouldn't think twice about eliminating anyone who stood in his way. Playing to the media was his absolute forte. Seen as something of a gangster celebrity, he regularly rubbed shoulders with Hollywood's elite and its biggest stars. Even with his notorious reputation as a crime boss, many still dreamed of getting a seat at his table. To delve deeper into his story, let's take a journey back to post-war Los Angeles, a city where crime and corruption ran rampant. This narrative aims purely to recount historical facts, and should in no way be seen as condoning organized crime. Mickey Cohen hailed from a Jewish family that had escaped poverty and anti-Semitism in Tsarist Russia for a new life in the United States. His parents, Max and Fanny Cohen, uneducated and struggling with the language, immigrated to America seeking a brighter future. They settled in a tough New York City neighborhood, raising their 6 children, including Meyer Harris Cohen, better known as Mickey Cohen, the youngest of the brood. He was born on September 4, 1913, in Brooklyn. Tragically, just 2 months after Mickey's birth, his father passed away, leaving a significant void in his upbringing. Max Cohen, a hard-working, religious and honest man, was in every way the antithesis of the man his son would grow to be. Now a widow, his mother did everything in her power to ensure her children had the best possible future. In 1915, she and her children packed up and moved to the West Coast, settling in Los Angeles. The City of Angels was experiencing a real economic boom at the time, drawing in many immigrants, including the Cohens, who decided to try their luck there. The American West was in the midst of a robust economic expansion at this time, largely fueled by the burgeoning railway system. Trade, more active than ever, allowed Los Angeles and its surrounding cities to develop at a dramatic pace. Like countless Americans seeking opportunity, the Cohen family was lured by the promise of adventure and a brighter future. They moved into the Boyle Heights neighborhood, a working-class area located just east of downtown Los Angeles. It was a melting pot, home to immigrants from diverse backgrounds, including Italians, Mexicans, Russians, Japanese, Chinese, and Jews. Much like their old New York City neighborhood, living conditions were tough. Yet, that didn't deter Fanny Cohen from raising her children as best she could. This courageous mother tirelessly worked to ensure Mickey and his siblings were properly fed and clothed. Constantly busy with work, however, she found little time to oversee their education. Compounded by the absence of their father, Mickey and his brothers gradually found themselves left to their own devices. The young boys soon began to explore the streets of Los Angeles. Without a strong father figure, Mickey naturally gravitated towards his older brother Harry. Harry quickly pulled him into a life of crime at a tender age, involving him in activities like gambling and bootlegging, especially lucrative during Prohibition. In elementary school, Mickey Cohen was frequently absent, missing out on crucial foundational learning. He reportedly couldn't read, write, or even count past 5 until he was 30 years old. His first run-ins with the law happened early, at just 8 years old. Caught red-handed, he was nabbed by a Prohibition agent, arrested, and sent to a juvenile detention center. He was released quickly, but with no intention of repenting, he simply continued his life as a young criminal. In fact, at age 10, he even robbed a movie theater armed with a baseball bat. This landed him back under arrest and behind bars, though this time in a stricter detention facility, where he spent 7 months before finally being released. Beyond his criminal exploits, Mickey also took on work as a newspaper salesman. It was a cutthroat business where he used his fists to dominate the most profitable corners. During these street skirmishes, he also developed a talent for boxing, which he soon put to good use by entering amateur fights. Mickey Cohen stepped into the boxing ring at age 11. He started as an amateur, fighting countless bouts across Los Angeles.
In Zeitseropes, young Mickey rarely lost.
He racked up a string of victories, quickly earning his first title, the city's flyweight champion, and at just 13, his name appeared in the newspapers for the very first time. From that point on, Mickey developed a passion for boxing, but he never forgot the hustle. He continued his street education, taking on odd jobs to make a living. The young teenager harbored an insatiable desire for more, whether it was material wealth, respect, or the attention of those around him. This drive for social elevation soon translated into dominating multiple sales territories, most often acquired through sheer force. He hawked all sorts of merchandise from street corners, from newspapers and sodas to candies. It was during this era that the Great Depression hit America with full force. Mickey, now 15, headed east to join his brother Harry in Cleveland. There, the young man truly entered the professional boxing world. Simultaneously, he began rubbing shoulders with several big names in the local mafia. As he frequented this underworld, Mickey Cohen couldn't help but envy them, coveting their luxurious clothes, their fortunes and their status. These same mobsters he idolized quickly took notice of him, recognizing his undeniable boxing talent. They even offered him a chance to go to New York to train with more prominent managers. He accepted the offer, and just 1 year after arriving in Cleveland, young Mickey left for Manhattan, where a potentially great boxing career awaited him. However, once in New York, Mickey's ring performances weren't quite up to par, pushing him to return to Cleveland earlier than planned. He continued boxing there for a while, but his heart wasn't truly in it anymore. To make a living, Mickey instead preferred to turn to organized crime, notably specializing in armed robberies. With his crew, he pulled off 2 to 3 robberies a week, just like that. His sole goal was to amass as much money as he could. What he didn't realize was that he was trespassing on Cleveland Mafia territory. Unhappy about not getting their cut, they called him to a meeting. At this meeting, the Mafia bosses issued a warning, but they also immediately recognized Mickey's immense potential. Violent and intrepid by nature, he seemed perfectly suited to the kind of man they were looking for. At 19, Mickey Cohen officially joined the ranks of the Cleveland Mafia, working as a henchman and hitman. Now a soldier for Cleveland's organized crime outfit, Mickey Cohen continued his string of armed robberies. One particular heist, however, would force him to flee the city in a hurry. The incident occurred during a cafeteria robbery when a shootout erupted between Mickey's gang and the police. Trapped, the gangsters watched as one of their own was arrested. Convicted and sent to prison, the arrest proved to be a major embarrassment for Cohen's crew. Later, recognized by a witness from the scene, Mickey Cohen himself was arrested. The case dragged on for months. Fortunately for Mickey, he managed to get off with a relatively light sentence and was ready to resume his heists as if nothing had happened. But that wouldn't be the case. This run-in with the law had not pleased his bosses in the slightest. They made the decision to move him out of town. Mickey was told to head to Chicago and keep a low profile. By then, Chicago was no longer dominated by Al Capone's criminal empire. It was 1934, and the former crime baron was incarcerated at Alcatraz, his body ravaged by syphilis. Once there, Mickey Cohen was immediately connected with the outfit, the name given to Chicago's powerful mafia organization. He was introduced to several big names in the local underworld, including the Capone brothers, Matthew and Ralph. With the outfit's approval, Mickey Cohen opened his first gambling table, then a second, which he promptly rigged so players would lose every time. This scam, however, did not sit well with his bosses. As a result of this scheme, he was forced to leave Chicago immediately. His Cleveland bosses advised him to return to Los Angeles, where a new project was waiting. The year was 1937, and after his stint on the East Coast, Mickey Cohen returned to the city where he grew up, Los Angeles. It was a city unlike the rest of the United States when it came to organized crime. Unlike New York and Cleveland, where gambling was firmly controlled by the mob, in Los Angeles, corrupt police officers ran the show. The city's rackets were dominated by a handful of local businessmen and politicians. Truth be told, at that time, the mafia hadn't yet firmly established itself on the West Coast. That's precisely why Mickey Cohen was sent there, with the explicit goal of reversing that trend. His Cleveland bosses instructed him to link up with a notorious figure from the New York Mafia, Bugsy Siegel. Alongside Siegel, his mission was to seize control of the Los Angeles racket market, no matter what it took. Benjamin Siegel, infamously known as Bugsy, had been dispatched by the New York underworld to stake their claim on the Los Angeles rackets. His East Coast partners gave him free rein to scope out the territory and expand their operations. In 1939, Mickey Cohen was sent to assist him in this rather perilous mission. As Siegel's henchman, he was expected to obey Bugsy's orders without question, and Siegel wasted no time putting him to work. Mickey began his assignment by launching numerous raids on gambling dens and brothels controlled by local racketeers. This strategy proved quite effective, as Bugsy Siegel's crew managed to expand their empire across the city, monopolizing several significant criminal enterprises. They soon controlled nearly the entire Los Angeles racket market. By the 1940s, Mickey Cohen was truly making a name for himself within Los Angeles organized crime. Within Bugsy's organization, he was steadily gaining more influence, building both reputation and power. He was handed new responsibilities, each more significant than the last. At that point, Mickey's gangster career underwent a complete transformation. The numerous gambling operations he oversaw significantly boosted his influence. With over 500 bookmaker associates under his command, he was now laying the groundwork for his own empire and dominance. His criminal empire soon diversified. Beyond gambling, Mickey Cohen also raked in profits from selling everything from clothing and alcohol to perfumes, gasoline, and even spaghetti sauces. Not to mention his numerous restaurants, nightclubs, and bars, which further elevated his standing in the organized crime world. Prostitution, extortion, and drug trafficking were other lucrative sectors where he excelled. His grip on the City of Angels was becoming radically stronger. Meanwhile, Mickey married Lavon Norma Weaver, an Irish model and prostitute with whom he had fallen deeply in love. Their marriage conveniently exempted him from military enlistment at a time when World War II was in full swing. In 1944, the couple moved into Beverly Hills, the city's most chic neighborhood. As the owner of a spacious and luxurious residence, Mickey Cohen was living his American dream to the fullest. That dream only grew when he learned of his boss's departure, Bugsy Siegel. Plagued by legal troubles, Siegel had grown weary of life in Los Angeles and decided to pack his bags. Siegel's absence, ironically, brought immense satisfaction to Mickey, who could now extend his dominance throughout the Californian underworld. Now firmly entrenched as Los Angeles's crime boss, Mickey Cohen could finally indulge his boundless thirst for power. His meteoric ascent to the top of the criminal underworld, however, came with significant consequences. Many enemies would emerge, eager to see him dead. They viewed his success with resentment and would stop at nothing to bring him down. Among them was Jack Dragna, the formidable head of one of Los Angeles's most influential Italian mafia families. Hostilities with Dragna's crew kicked off on June 20, 1947, the day Benjamin Bugsy Siegel was murdered. Still serving as Bugsy Siegel's henchman, Mickey officially stepped into leadership of the gang after the murder. This new status prompted a bold decision: he would seize control of all Bugsy's racket operations, without even bothering to consult the Dragna family, who were considered allies at the time. Seeing their authority so blatantly challenged, the Dragna family was deeply offended. For them, this unilateral move was the ultimate insult, the final straw. War was officially declared between the two gangs. Determined to make him regret his disrespect, the Dragna family began plotting his assassination. They carried out several armed raids aimed directly at him. Miraculously, Mickey managed to survive every single one of them. This gang war was of paramount importance to the Dragna family. Their financial and political standing, severely weakened after Cohen's power grab, left them no choice but to act. It's worth noting that during this period, judicial authorities and the police were largely under Mickey's thumb, as he swept everything into his path. Though loathed by the Dragna, Mickey Cohen soon found another adversary emerge: the Gangster Squad, a secret police unit established in late 1946. Their sole purpose was to dismantle organized crime in Los Angeles. Composed of 7 agents at its inception, the Gangster Squad was notorious for operating outside conventional rules, executing most of their missions in utmost secrecy. Indeed, they operated without official offices, always worked in civilian clothes, and remained completely unknown to the Los Angeles police files. These covert officers didn't waste any time before pulling off their first major operation. Using one of their agents disguised as a TV technician, they successfully infiltrated Cohen's residence and planted a bug, allowing them to gather valuable phone taps. Other operations followed, carried out by this squad, and not always so subtly. The Gangster Squad also resorted to firearms to disrupt Cohen's illicit activities. Under assault from the Dragna family and now the Gangster Squad, Mickey Cohen's reign appeared more imperiled than ever. Being a crime boss usually means maintaining a low profile, but with Mickey Cohen, it was precisely the opposite. Driven by a hunger for fame, the gangster consistently landed on the front pages of newspapers. Ever since his ascent in the criminal underworld, he had been receiving increasing media attention. He became a bona fide Hollywood rock star. His public appearances included signing autographs and spending evenings at the city's trendiest clubs. There, Mickey was frequently spotted alongside prominent politicians and major celebrities, including Frank Sinatra, Sherry Jackson, Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, Liz Renee, and Sammy Davis Jr. His criminal activities, however, pushed him to constantly cultivate his public image. To that end, he often presented himself as a benefactor to the poor, certain that this approach would win him public favor. These supposed humanitarian efforts, however, offered him little genuine protection. The much harsher reality on the ground, however, consistently caught up with him. Still firmly in the Dragna family's crosshairs, Mickey Cohen continued to bear the brunt of the rival mafia clan's relentless attacks. The war between the two gangs raged on, making Los Angeles a city holding its breath. Jack Dragna, undeterred, remained determined to bring Cohen down and reclaim several prosperous territories. To that end, he could also count on the arrival of other mafia factions for support, notably the Chicago outfit. With these new reinforcements, he and his gang could now pursue their vendetta with renewed vigor. Mickey Cohen, despite being on the defensive, refused to be beaten. Despite the constant armed raids, he miraculously escaped every time. Take, for instance, the morning of July 20, 1949, when Mickey Cohen endured yet another deadly offensive from the Dragna family. This attack was dubbed the most violent in Los Angeles history, leaving 2 seriously wounded, Cohen's lieutenant and his bodyguard. All these repeated attacks made the atmosphere in the city of Angels unbearable. Primarily, it was unbearable for the gangsters themselves, who saw their businesses neglected in favor of unprofitable violence. But even more so for ordinary civilians, who bore the full brunt of the collateral damage from these mob shootouts. Yet, at this point, the Dragna family finally saw their relentless efforts begin to pay off. Their incessant raids finally started to wear Cohen down. First, on a human level, he lost several of his soldiers within the span of a year. Then, financially, his coffers were gradually drained, as gang warfare proved generally detrimental to business in that world. In total, Mickey Cohen and his gang endured nearly 9 assassination attempts, one of which would prove to be particularly devastating. The assault, orchestrated by Tom Dragna, the boss's son, took place on the morning of February 2, 1950. That day, 30 sticks of dynamite pulverized Mickey Cohen's residence, yet he once again emerged unharmed.
But at what cost?
This spectacular incident appalled public opinion. It seized newspaper headlines, eventually reaching the ears of federal authorities. The year 1950 marked a turning point, making Americans acutely aware of the pervasive reach of the mafia across their territory. This awareness was thanks in part to one man, Estes Kefauver. At the time, this U.S. senator was spearheading the largest organized crime investigation the United States had ever seen. The investigation would become known as the Kefauver Commission. During the investigation, nearly 600 witnesses were heard across the country in widely publicized hearings. Major figures of the underworld were summoned, including Willie Moretti, Joe Adonis, and Frank Costello. Mickey Cohen couldn't escape it either. He was summoned on November 17, 1950, to the federal building in Los Angeles. Before the senators, he had to answer very specific questions designed to determine if he was to be considered an enemy of the nation. The questions primarily focused on his numerous illicit businesses. At the conclusion of the hearing, Senator Kefauver and his colleagues presented their findings. Their conclusion was unequivocal. They deemed Mickey Cohen an influential and powerful mafia leader who dangerously threatened the security of the country. This verdict signaled the point of no return for the Los Angeles crime boss. Indeed, on April 6, 1951, he was summoned in connection with a tax evasion case. According to tax authorities, he and his wife owed nearly $300,000 in taxes, an amount equivalent to $2.7 million today. Their trial commenced on June 3, 1951. The courtroom, filled to capacity, was packed with journalists and photographers. Even some film celebrities made appearances. This was clearly a trial of national significance. Proceedings began with LaVon Weaver, Mickey Cohen's wife. Before the judges, she managed to walk away free, partly due to her husband's insistence on her complete innocence. He claimed she knew nothing more about it than a newborn. Then it was Mickey's turn to take the stand. His case was far more complex, and his trial would stretch on for over 12 days. 4 hours were required to complete the jury deliberations. Their final decision was, Mickey Cohen was guilty. He was charged with 4 counts, including 3 for tax evasion and 1 for filing a false tax declaration. He was sentenced to 5 years in jail and a $100,000 fine, which would be $830,000 today. Mickey Cohen was sent to federal prison. Following this lawsuit, Mickey Cohen attempted to appeal repeatedly, but to no avail. In 1952, he was sent to the federal prison on McNeil Island, located in the northwestern United States. His lifestyle there didn't change much, as his detention conditions were remarkably comfortable. He could eat whatever he wanted and even dined privately with prison guards, largely due to rampant corruption. He spent 3 years and 8 months in this penitentiary before being released and paroled for good behavior. Back in the City of Angels, his influence was nonetheless significantly tarnished. His wife would later describe him as having become miserable and pathetic. Feeling abandoned by his circle after his prison stint, he reportedly expressed a desire to avoid everyone. This sense of isolation was further exacerbated when his wife LaVon filed for divorce after 18 years of marriage. However, in addition to this personal blow, another, far more serious piece of news loomed. The tax authorities, still hot on his heels, summoned him for a second trial, again related to tax evasion. The trial began on May 2, 1961, lasting 41 days. This time, over 200 witnesses and nearly 1,000 exhibits were gathered. Everything seemed designed to conclusively prove Mickey Cohen's tax evasion. According to the prosecutor, he owed over $400,000 in taxes, an amount that would be $3.1 million today. 22 hours of deliberation were necessary for the jurors to deliver their verdict.
Mickey, head bowed, awaited his sentence.
He was found guilty on 8 counts of tax evasion. For this, he was sentenced to serve 15 years, with a stipulation that this prison term be spent in the country's strictest prison, Alcatraz. This judicial decision marked the definite beginning of his downfall. Upon arriving at Alcatraz, Mickey's stay was brief, due to its closure in March 1963. He was subsequently transferred to another federal prison, Atlanta. There, his life was irrevocably altered. While watching the news in the middle of the day, his cellmate, armed with a lead pipe, struck him repeatedly in the head. Seriously injured, Mickey sustained a fractured skull and a massive gash. Numerous bone fragments also became lodged in his brain, further complicating his health condition. This brutal assault left him in a coma for 2 weeks. Once out of the hospital, however, Mickey Cohen was a mere shadow of his former self. The irreversible brain damage he suffered from the attack left him permanently debilitated. The former boxer was thus forced to use a cane for the rest of his life. He was released from prison in January 1972, having spent 10 years behind bars. At 58 years old, Mickey Cohen was finally emerging from his prison nightmare. Back on the streets of Los Angeles, Mickey Cohen was now a broken man. He attempted to resume his former activities, but without success. Times had changed, and many of his associates were gone, most having passed away. Mickey spent his final days watching boxing matches while battling severe illness. Indeed, doctors had, in the interim, diagnosed him with terminal stomach cancer. It was October 1975, and this was one health problem too many. Greatly diminished, he lingered for a few months after this diagnosis before slowly dying on his deathbed on June 29, 1976. His death thus marked the end of an era, one where organized crime had reigned with impunity in the neighborhoods of Los Angeles. Ultimately, Mickey Cohen cemented his place as one of history's most eccentric gangsters. His life as a criminal, in many ways, mirrored that of Al Capone. A comparison reveals they both shared the same undeniable draw to the media. Arrested on the same charge of tax evasion, they both served time at Alcatraz prison, before eventually ending up diminished and deposed from their thrones as crime godfathers.